Hey guys, this is another video for our how-to playlist, how to do stuff in Japan playlist, and like most of the other videos on this playlist, it will overlap with other videos we've made previously, because often these topics are so complex that we've sort of spoken about similar things in the past, and they sort of overlap. You'll see what I mean as we go on. Someone once said that people in Japan behave like robots, or expected to behave like robots or something like that, which sounds very harsh, but as you might have seen in previous videos, there are examples of where that is sort of true, where people who are in Japan, and this isn't just Japanese people, this is whoever happens to live in Japan, is expected to behave like a robot. And I'll get to some examples just so that we can sort of get a bit of an idea what I'm talking about. First example is, some of you might have seen a video we made previously about the Totoro house. So the Miyazaki animation called Totoro, that some of you might be familiar with, and in that animation was a house, and they've actually built a copy of that house from the animation, and people go and visit it, and it's in a big park. Actually, it's in the World Expo, where World Expo was held years ago, in '98 or whatever it was. So it's in that big park. And so if you want to go and see the Totoro house, you turn up at this big park and you have to go to a meeting point, and you go to the meeting point and there's a little ticket office and you buy a ticket, and then you get assigned to Group A or Group B, and you'll be given a pass to wear on a string around your neck, and those sort of things are really popular in Japan. Some sort of label or pass to make everybody in a group the same. So you'll get given a thing to wear around your neck with a big label on it, big card on it that says A or B. And so then you're in the A group or the B group. And in some countries, if there are tours of a museum or tours of some place, obviously it's not unusual in other countries too to put people into groups so that they can go in a little group and with one tour guide and be shown around. Of course, that's quite normal. But probably what people from other countries would notice the most is the tightness of the organisation, or how controlled it is. So you pay your money for your ticket, you get given the card with the A or B on it, and then probably in some countries you then go and just sort of hang around and wait until it was your turn to go, and then they'd call you all together. But in Japan, at that particular place, what you all do is you all go and stand under a sort of a tent thing in a square, and they have one square marked out for a Group A and they have one square marked out for Group B, and everybody just goes and stands there. And I mean, this place is in the middle of a very big park, so there's lots of trees and there's benches and there's all sorts of lovely places to sit around and all sorts of nice things to see. There's ponds and there's all sorts of beautiful scenery. So probably in some countries, while you're waiting for your turn to go on your tour, you'd probably just sort of stand in the general area and look at the view, and perhaps sit on a bench under a tree and maybe have a drink or a coffee or something and relax and just wait until it's your turn. But in Japan, you get told, go over into that tent, and then you go over to the tent. And of course, all this is very polite. You're told very politely to do these things. You know, please go over there and stand in that square under that tent. So you go over to the little tent, you stand underneath in a square, and everybody just stands there. And Japanese people are really used to this sort of thing. So when there's something happening like this, everybody goes into sort of robot mode and just does what they're told. And this is sort of the reason for this video. This is going on the how-to playlist, and this is just sort of a heads up to let you know that when this happens, if you come from a culture or a country where this sort of behaviour would not be normal or not be usual, you might find this a little bit uncomfortable. So the advice from this video would be, if you find yourself in one of these situations, just switch into like robot mode and just go with it. Because if you allow any emotions or any sort of frustration to come forward, it's going to create problems for you. So just to continue with the story, so then you're standing in a square under this tent with maybe 30 or 40 other people, and everybody just stands there, you know, and it's really quite normal in situations like this in Japan that everybody will just stand there And whether this is waiting for, we've talked about restaurants before, the restaurants get really busy and quite often you have to wait outside the restaurant until it's your turn, or wait just inside the door of the restaurant in a waiting area, and everybody ought to sit. And it's the same, the waiting area at the doctor's where everyone just sits and no one does anything. Of course, some people stroke the hoe, some people get the smartphone out and sit there and play with the smartphone so they don't have to make eye contact with anybody. But generally what people will do is just stand there and they avoid making eye contact with each other. They don't talk to anybody unless it happens to be the person they're with, and they might talk quietly to the person they're with. But everybody just sort of goes into this robot mode and just stands there for however long, 15, 20 minutes or whatever, just standing there in this square underneath the tent. And then along comes the tour guide, and then always what comes next is the setsume, is the explanation. And almost always, if you do things as a group, doesn't matter how simple the thing is that you're doing, there'll always be a setsume first, a big explanation first. And it's just, again, we've talked about this similar sort of thing in other videos before, but it's part of the Japanese culture. It's sort of like the hive. We made a video called The Hive, and it's a little bit along those lines as well. It's just to make sure everybody's on the same page, and occasionally there's some information in the setsume, in the explanation, that's useful, but quite often it's just waffle. It's just the same sort of thing you hear every time. So there'll be a big setsume, there'll be explanation of whatever it is. So in the case of the Totoro house, they'll tell you what's going to happen. Instead of just doing it, let's just go, and when we get there, we'll show you what to do. They have to do the big explanation first, the big setsume first. So when we get to the house, Group A is going to go inside and look around, and you can do this, and you're allowed to open drawers, you're allowed to take photos. This is all true. You're allowed to do this, you're allowed to do that. Actually, you're not allowed to take photos inside the Totoro house. Group B, you'll be outside first, and you're allowed to take photos outside and walk around the outside of the house and touch things and look at things and this sort of thing. And then after 10 minutes we swap, and Group B goes in, Group A comes out, and then Group B goes in, and it's the reverse, So the big setsume, and this is just standing underneath this tent, listening to this staff member tell you in very polite, long-winded Japanese, what's going to happen, and it goes on and on and on and on. And a lot of other details as well. Please don't eat or drink or smoke in the Totoro house. Please don't do this, please don't do that. Please do this, please do that. Big setsume, okay, finish with the big setsume, okay, let's go. And then everyone moves in really tight groups. And of course, in some countries, if two groups of people had to go from this place to that place, and it's quite far from that place to where the actual building is, was quite a walk. And in most countries, people just sort of spread out, and they'd be taking photos, and they'd be chatting and all that sort of thing. But in Japan, no. Group A moves as a really tight little group. Group B moves as a tight little group, and they walk, very sort of organised to this place. And again, just a side note again, the reason for this video again is just to point out that when everybody's doing this, it's best that you do it too. Because if you're part of one of these groups and you stop and you start taking photos or going to the vending machine and getting a drink or doing something different, chances are it's going to upset the balance. And there's a good chance that guide's going to say, come on, please hurry, and hurry you up. And everyone's going to look at you, and you're going to be seen as making waves and not going with the flow. So really, we've got to do the same thing, right? So everyone moves in this tight little group and gets to the Totoro house, and then you get another little setsume again, another little explanation again. And then, okay, Group A goes inside, and Group B stays outside, and Group A can look around inside and open things and look at things, and Group B's outside taking photos, and all very organised. And then okay, now Group A come out, Group B go in, and then once that's all over, and at the end of it, finally, then when you leave, you go back in your tight little group back to where you started from, and then everybody sort of lines up, and they take your little pass from you and say thank you very much, and off you go. So that's it. And usually in Japan, if you're part of a group doing something, that's pretty much what it's like. It's really tight, really controlled, really organised. I mean, the upside of all this is that these things are super organised, and at the time, quite often it can seem really frustrating and really annoying because you have to do all this sort of faffing around, and it tends to burn a lot of time. The actual time getting prepared for something is usually more time than you spend doing it. And that was the case here with the big waiting under the tent and the big explanation and the big thing. Really, we spent more time doing that than we did actually at the Totoro house, you know. But that's pretty normal here as well. The end result is it is very organised. So, you know, you walk into the place and it is all organised, there's no doubt about that. So, with the preparation of the Olympic Games going on at the moment, it keeps coming to mind what it might be like. No doubt people at the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo, no doubt the journalists will be reporting that, you know, everything's really clean and tidy and organised. But it's quite possible that this will be the way it will be at the Tokyo Olympics as well. Like if you come as a spectator or as an athlete or anything else, there's a lot of this, you know, take a ticket from, and usually places they'll have ticket machines. So you go to the ticket machine, get a ticket and then bring it to the person and then they give you the big sets of maybe explanation, and then you go over here and stand here in a line and everyone stands here in a line patiently. Then you get brought to another place and you stand there in a line. And often when you're places where there's other people, this is the way that everybody has to behave. And, you know, another example, just on a side note too, another example is a restaurant. There's a yakiniku restaurant that we go to. It's a really good one. And you go in and they've got a big menu, pretty normal menu. And they give you a big piece of paper. It's like an A3 piece of paper, double-sided, and it has the entire menu on it. Then they give you that and a pencil. And it has the entire menu on it, and the idea is that you go through the menu, you decide what you want, and then you mark it on this piece of paper, how many of each thing. So one of this, two of these, one of these, and you mark it all on the piece of paper. And then when you finish doing that, you push the button, ding dong, and the staff member, hi, staff member comes running, and they've got their little electronic thing, you know, that takes the order. And then they read the piece of paper. So they sit there and they read the piece of paper and they input what you've written into their little machine. And so they've inputted in everything that you've put on the thing. And then they say, now, do you mind if I check with you? And then they read back from their little machine your order back to you, and you listen, and then you tell them that's correct. Which means that adding that piece of paper into the preparation doesn't really do anything, because other than that you still have to do all the things that you normally do in a normal restaurant. So it doesn't really add anything, it doesn't save any time, it doesn't do anything, you know. All it means is that for every customer that comes into their restaurant, or every table of customers in their restaurant, they have to waste an A3 piece of paper. So they must waste a hell of a lot of paper, but that's just what they do. You know, and quite often you'll find yourself doing things like that here, filling out forms and writing your name and phone number. A lot of stuff here you have to write your name and phone number, and quite often you look at it and you think, why? You know, why is this piece of paper necessary? You know, why is it really necessary that we go and stand under that tent? You know, in that square that's marked there on the ground? Is it really necessary that we do that? So there's a lot of stuff like that. So again, the reason for this video is that, you know, you're going to encounter that when you come to Japan. When you do anything here where there's other people, there's a really good chance that this is the sort of thing that you're going to experience. That you're going to be pointed to go to one place and come over here and sit here. You know, you sit here and wait here, and then you know, hospitals are the same here. You go in and you'll fill out a form, and then you'll be taken to one place and you'll sit and you wait, and then you'll get up and you go over to another counter and give them the form, and then they'll stamp the form and write something on it, and then you're taken to somewhere else, and then they'll process the form, and then the form goes to the doctor, and then someone else gets the form, and at the end you go to the counter and you get 2 more forms, and there's a lot of this sort of being shepherded from place to place and herded from place to place. And if you come from a different society to this, quite often what you'll find is you'll be looking at it and thinking, this is irrational, this is illogical, you know, it'd be easier if they took this step out. And quite often, if you look at a process here, you could quite easily remove 2 or 3 steps to the process and save a hell of a lot of time and have no disadvantage, you know. And quite often 2 or 3 steps in the process are a total waste of time and totally unnecessary, you know, but it's just the way it is. So that's the purpose of this video, is this big heads up again. There's a lot of these how-to videos really are just sort of a heads up to let you know what, if you come to Japan, what you're going to encounter, and so that you know that you know when this happens to you, and it will happen. I mean, when you arrive at the airport, this will happen. You know, this is quite often the case, and often it's really efficient, and the end result is a very good result. But quite often, you know, stand here, come over here, stand here, take a number, put on a badge, put on this badge. Everybody has to wear this green hat. Come over here, do this, do this, do this. And for some people from some countries, it's going to make you really uncomfortable, probably, because you're going to feel like sheep, you're going to feel like a robot, and you're going to get frustrated and think, no, I'm just going to go sit under that tree. I don't want to do your silly game. You know, it's quite possible that's how you're going to feel. But you can't do that. If you do react like that, if you get frustrated by what they're making you do and you react badly to it, it's going to make problems for you. It's going to make the people around you really uncomfortable. If you happen to be with some other people, it's going to embarrass them and make them uncomfortable. And it's just really bad. The only way, or the best way, to deal with this when it happens, because if you come here for a period of time, it will happen to you. And the only way to deal with it is just go into robot mode. Recognize it as soon as you find yourself in a situation where they're saying, go to that machine, put in the money, fill out the form, come over here, stand on this yellow line. As soon as you find yourself in a circumstance like that, recognize it. It's that thing, it's that robot thing, and just put yourself in robot mode and just do it. It's the best. It's the only way. It really is. Any other alternative is not going to end well for you. It's going to have great problems. So just go with it. Just go. Okay, it's one of those situations. Switch on your patience. You need a large degree of patience here in a lot of those sort of circumstances, because quite often it's going to take longer than you probably think it should, and you're going to be doing a lot of things that you're going to think are unnecessary. You know, come on, do I have to fill out this form just to order dinner? Just take my order, you know, and it won't work. And quite often the staff have absolutely no choice. That whatever that system is, they've done that system for 100 years or 200 years, and that's what they do. And that's just what they do. And, you know, government departments, I mean, imagine, from the examples we've given already, can you imagine what government departments are like? That's quite often the case as well. And it's the way they've always done it, you know, and the staff have no choice. And if you say, I don't want to do it that way, I want to do it another way, well, no, they can't do it another way. So the only way, you know, don't buck it. Don't say, I'm not Japanese, I'm from somewhere else, I want to do it my way. I mean, you can if you want to, but the reason for this video is just to let you know, if you try and do it another way, it's not going to end well. It won't. Guaranteed it won't end well. So, anyway, heads up. Be prepared to turn on robot mode at a moment's notice. More videos coming soon.